You are a sales professional, whether you are literally working for a business in sales or you are a business owner or a solopreneur. And you understand that in order for you to stay alive in business, in order for you to raise the bottom line, in order for you to enroll new clients, sales has to be first and foremost. And we love to talk about sales on the show, but we don't generally get into the things that are happening behind the scenes when it comes to sales, specifically what has to do with your own unique personality when you're selling. And you might have heard some of these old school tactics like, matching and mirroring and watching the other person's body. And we're going to be talking about some body language stuff today with our expert guest, Mr. Ben Bressington. But we're going to specifically be talking about how you can use your uniqueness and your personality to create more sales for you and to build your successful business. So without further ado, the fee for the Be Better broadcast. We don't run any ads. We don't have sponsors. We don't want to interrupt your viewing experience. And we've only grown the way we have because of you, because you've shared this show when you've taken away anything of value or insight or anything that helped you in your business or your personal life, because what we talk about today is going to help you in all facets of your life. So share the show with one person when you take away something from this conversation with Ben. Without further ado, let's talk to the man of the hour, Mr. Ben Bressington, all about sales. And for those who don't know Ben is a speaker and author of multiple books, with his latest book called People Ignorant: Unlocking Success, Confidence, and Influence. Ben has spent the past decade helping Fortune 1000 companies apply gamification principles to their sales and their communication process. And now he spends most of his time helping people to improve their sales conversations, specifically helping them to close deals faster and discover the hidden opportunity in daily communication. I'm pumped to jump into this with you, Ben, because I love sales. I've been in sales for years and years and years. And I know obviously you have too. So it's a pleasure to have you on the show, brother. Thanks for being here.
Hey, man, I'm super excited to be talking about this.
Right back at you. Let's just talk right about your book, because I love the title and I read it and I was like, what does this mean? So your book's name is People Ignorant, and the subtitle here is Unlocking Success, Confidence, and Influence. But why did you choose People Ignorant as the main title for this book? What does that mean?
Yeah, so I titled it that way because I believe that we become ignorant to some of the fundamentals in basic communication. We've forgotten how to understand body language, simple body language cues that determine if people are engaged, how they're engaged. And most conversational breakdowns you have with anyone is a result of a misunderstanding of a language cue or a body language cue. And we're now so focused on our cell phones, on our tablets and social media that we don't even look up and pay attention to people anymore. Like, how often do you go into a restaurant or Starbucks and you sit there? People are literally sitting side by side, not even talking to each other anymore. They're texting each other and they're a foot apart. Like we've become ignorant to these fundamentals. They no longer get taught. They don't get taught in school. I did a criminology degree, right? I was fortunate enough to learn a lot about body language and things like that. With my law degree, we never did one class on communication styles. We never did one class on body language. We never did one class on understanding linguistics, right? Let alone you spend all this time and money doing training and education, right? And most people just miss the basics. And unfortunately, a lot of people get taught old school tactics that aren't working in today's conversation, in today's world, because of how we've evolved. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So you talk about being very attuned to the other person's body language, and a lot of old school practices talk about body language. So what are the old school practices that we're still migrating into the modern age that just aren't working for us anymore?
One of the big ones is the AIDA sales methodology, right? Attention, interest, desire, right? That methodology was actually designed for 1846 is when that model was, like, over 100 years ago. And it was designed for consumers back then. Now, consumer mindset has completely changed now. Like, the buying process has changed. We've got more access to information than ever before. And a lot of people are using sales techniques that are dated in the creation of pressure and anxiety. We call it sales resistance. And a lot of people don't realize that in your conversation, you're actually creating resistance, which is actually pushing me back, not bringing me in and engaging. There's some of the sales tactics taught by people still from the 60s and 70s, right, that create high pressure. And that high pressure anxiety stuff I found very hard. Like, one of the big differences we find now with data, right, from the data of the conversation analysis, is we can actually see when you have influence over somebody you're talking to, when you lose that in a conversation. There's something I call the happiness sandwich. And it's quite simple. Research shows that we remember the start of something and the end of something. What goes on in the middle, we kind of it gets lost, right? It gets filed away in our memory. So the thing is most salespeople, or just people in general, when you're communicating with people, the best thing you can do is make sure they're experiencing a happy emotion at the beginning and a happy emotion at the end.
Wow.
So how many times have you had a conversation with somebody? Could have been via email, it could have been text message, where you possibly left them in a negative emotional state. And there's multiple negative emotions, right?
Yeah.
But leaving them in that negative emotion allows that negative emotion to fester. And what happens then? Doubt. Am I doing the right things? Is this the right person to be working with? All this type of stuff. And a lot of people don't realize that they leave people in this negative, unhappy state because they've been building pressure or anxiety, or the closing techniques. Like, you get on the phone call with someone and go, okay, at the end of this call, we're going to have you make a decision if we're a good fit to work with each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
That one line
Yeah.
instantly makes people go, oh, I don't know if I'm ready to make a decision. So the whole conversation now, I have anxiety because I'm like, oh, he's going to ask me at the end, or you know what? He may think I'm not good. So you've created this pressure for these people, which makes them uncomfortable, which means your closing rates go down, not up. Does that make sense?
Wow. Yeah, no, it does. I talk about something a lot called just conversation selling. And it really isn't selling in the way that we understand it at all. It's selling where you literally build rapport with the person, care about them as a human being. Really, it's using non-scalable tactics in order to build rapport and actually learn about the person, determine whether I can help them. And then the end is, okay, based on what you told me, I can help you to do this. This is what that looks like. What are your thoughts on this? Like that whole, I've been through so many courses, man, where they say exactly what you said. Okay, well, at the end of this call, I expect you to make a decision of whether or not we're able to go forward. And if it's a no, it's okay. Like, I just want you to be able to tell me, so it's not, and like you said, then the person's like, well, this is kind of sleazy, right? It goes back to that part of our animal brain that's instinctually feeling unsafe in this sleazy environment. But again, like you mentioned, this is just something that we've been taught for years and years.
Well, you're 100% right. Like, the conversation selling. So when you think of a conversation, right, it's like in sales, we get trained to do things like, for some reason, right, that we would never say to somebody if we were having a conversation at the coffee shop with them or at the pub having a beer with someone, right? Like, that's a conversation. But yet, when you're in the sales conversation, right, we've got to be different. Why? How does that even, and if you're in sales, you may be a one-man business, a solopreneur, you may be growing your business, and you may be working with a virtual team. This becomes even more critical to understanding what's going on with all of us and how we communicate. So can I give people a quick tip, particularly if they're generating leads online?
Yeah.
So if you have leads online, they've come in interested, right? What can you do to improve your conversions? The first things you say to them within the first 30 seconds. My tip is, we do a lot of analysis of words to use, but most people don't talk about this. So when you have that lead that's coming online from Facebook or TikTok or wherever, you introduce yourself as normal and go, so Brandon, have you found what you're looking for? Or are you still looking? That one statement. Have you found what you're looking for? Because we found that assuming the sale is actually incorrect. Assuming the sale creates pressure and resistance. I'm not assuming the sale. I'm just trying to understand if you've got a problem. I'm a problem solver, not a product pusher. And the thing is I'm trying to understand if you've got a problem, you understand what your problem is, and if you've even got urgency to solve your problem. Like, I approach every call from that mindset. It's not a sale until I've been able to identify the problem and the urgency. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So let's say a lead comes in and, we ask the question of, what are your goals? How is your progress on your way to your goals? Are you where you want to be? Well, Brandon, no, I'm kind of struggling with this and this and this. Okay, cool. So have you found what it is that you're looking for in terms of a solution to that? And if they say, Ben, I haven't found the solution that I'm looking for, and that's actually something that I've been looking for, or they even say, I got this course or I started working with this program that just still isn't working for me. I'm not getting the results I want.
Mm-hmm.
When do you transition from being the consultant, being the person just asking questions to determine the problem solver, like you said? When do you transition from that to then talking about the product that you do have?
So what's interesting, so the question I mentioned is actually the first question you asked. And we've actually created a model that actually works for selling absolutely anything. And it works people through the process of the questions they have to ask and how they need to ask them, from tonality, because what most people aren't aware of is tonality can be up to 80% of the sale, right? So the thing is we find that most ineffective salespeople, there's two sad things about the world of sales professionals, right? So let me share those real quick. The average sales professional spends less than $50 a year on improving their communication.
Wow.
Improving and mastering sales. So the thing is let's face it, sales is critical for any business to survive, right? Your ability to close $10,000 in sales one month or $1 million in sales one month, is dependent on your ability to have a conversation. And that requires you to get better, right? And what's disappointing is how do people even expect to improve their sales communication or their ability to have conversations? Sales are conversations, right? Specific types of conversations. If you're not even investing in,
it's mind-blowing
in that perspective, right? They're like, oh, but I read a book with Tony Robbins 10 years ago. I'm like, okay, great. But what about using the data models from today, the understanding the things that I mentioned, asking that question, asking the right questions. And one of the things we do in our sales model, we show people how you don't need to be pitching 80% of the time, because that's what a lot of people do. They get on and they ask that problem, where's the goal, where's the gap? They define that type of stuff and they go straight into the pitch, right? And the thing is they're doing feature, benefits, all this type of stuff when they don't need to. Because you haven't actually created enough emotional engagement yet. And most people never ask. So they never ask what we call consequence questions. So for example, I'll get a quick example of one of those. Is so Brendan, if you don't take action to solve this problem and improve your sales and marketing, for example, how's that going to impact your business over the next 12 months? How's that going to impact you personally? Because now I need to understand the business impact and the personal impact. The consequence question, and we've got actually a few of them that people can actually just swipe and deploy, right? Wouldn't it be better to have someone actually understand the consequence of inaction?
Yeah.
Before you even talk about a product?
So my question for you, because I'm very, step 1, step 2, step 3, and I find this fascinating. When you have, let's say LinkedIn, because it's really all the same, just the platform's different, right? You get a connection request that comes through. Now you're connected with the person, right? The first question that you would ask this person is, hey, I'm just curious, have you found what you're looking for?
Yeah,
that's
100%.
The first thing you would ask them.
But on LinkedIn, it's a little bit different. So on LinkedIn, so if I'm having a conversation, I'm saying now, if a lead has come in through Facebook or whatever, right? They've responded to my ad, right? And I've got a call with them. So I wouldn't assume that they're a hot lead. First of all, it's reserved and kind of skeptical a little bit when I'm with the tonality style. You don't want to be high energy, because we can show from the data that your high energy actually creates resistance and pushes people back. So it's you're asking them that question to get them to kind of open up to you a little bit more. And they're like, oh, well, I'm looking. I kind of responded to 3 ads and I'm kind of looking for the solution, or I'm not looking, right? So you're trying to understand the context of where are they really at? Does that make sense? And that's the whole point of that question, particularly like if you've got a lead come in. If you're doing LinkedIn outreach, here's the secret. Deliver value up front with no request at least 3 times before you make an ask. Because
Awesome.
we all see it every single day on LinkedIn, right? We get hundreds of these automated messages. Here's who I am and this is what I do. I'm like, great. Who cares? Change your campaign, do a connection request, and deliver something of value to that person.
I love that. Absolutely. So you and I are having a conversation on LinkedIn, right? I've got obviously a program that I would love to see you join because I know I can help you. I've delivered 3 pieces of value for you, whether it's an article or I tag you in a video that helps to solve a problem, whatever it is.
Yeah.
What happens after those 3 touches of value? How would you then transition into the enrollment of this individual?
Well, you'll find that most of the time, if you've delivered value that's actually addressing something of interest to them, they start reaching back out to you and asking you questions. So this thing comes down to like, this can't be some crappy generic piece of like, hey, Brendan, I see that you're interested in scaling your sales teams, for example, right? This basic example. I've got a template here that you can use, which is my 1-page, 1-day SDR onboarding template. So this will allow you to get your sales, your SDRs, your salespeople, effective and on the phone within 4 hours. Does that make sense? So like, that's like a high value piece. This is not like, a lot of people do this outreach stuff, right? For whatever product or service they're selling, and they create low value things. They're trying to hold back the secret sauce.
Yeah.
Don't. Deliver massive value. And the thing is the longer you can actually deliver value without an ask, the more likely you will actually have a higher payment coming towards you from when you do work with that client, because you're building trust and respect.
Fascinating. So it's like your inbound is an attempt in order to create even more. Your outbound is an attempt to create even more inbound. So it's not like you ever making a pitch or having an ask. It's you causing them to begin asking you for the services that you offer and how you can help them.
Yeah. So, and it doesn't matter if you do lead generation, like even if you do LinkedIn lead generation, right? Or you offer website design, you go, hey, I noticed there's a few things on your website are wrong. We fixed them or we edited them or these type of things. Like, deliver massive value, because you'll be amazed at how that transforms things. Because a lot of people are going for the ask too quickly. I'll give you an example, right? It's like walking into an elevator or a lift, right? I have to speak Australian and American, right? Right. And you walk into the lift and there's a few people, right? And lifts are awkward for a lot of people, right? You know, like, because everyone's looking at their phone, they don't want to look at each other, all this type of stuff. And it's kind of like walking in and going to that person, hey, how's the conversation? How's your relationship with your mother? Right? That's awkward.
Yeah.
It's
a little weird.
People are building LinkedIn automation scripts doing the exact same thing.
Oh yeah.
Or they send that, hey, I'm just sending this email to get this in the top of my inbox. Well, piss off. There's like 30 of those messages that have come in the last 2 hours. Like, delete, delete, delete. Like, you would be at the top of my priority list if you had value that was helping me solve the problem I'm trying to solve.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this whole system that you just like laid out itself is someone could take that, leave, go use it right now and immediately, well, maybe not immediately, but in a short amount of time after following this process, begin to see traction in the amount of inbound leads coming into them. Now, specifically in those messages and in that communication, obviously the way you write is going to be different than the way everyone writes, or the way you speak is different than the way everyone speaks. So how can you use your personality and your uniqueness in order to build authority in your space even quicker?
So a lot of people don't understand personality. And so I'll frame it with LinkedIn again, right? So with LinkedIn, one of the things we do is we can actually convert a LinkedIn profile or an email into a full personality profile. So I can actually understand somebody's personality type before I communicate with them. which when we do these type of campaigns, we can have as high as a 33% response rate from cold messages, right? Because what I do is I take my LinkedIn lead list that I'm going to be going after. I actually analyze the personality types of those leads, and then I segment them into the 4 personality types, right? From that, I write a message that speaks specifically to each personality type. So now, because basically I know your core drivers, I know what's most important to you. So for example, is it okay if I share what the 4 personality types are? I'm going to give you a crash course in personality that you've never had before.
Please do.
Right? This is after spending millions of dollars trying to understand this stuff. So the simplest model for personality is what we call bird behavior. And there's 4 birds. So there's Liberty the eagle. And an eagle is a very task-orientated person. They want fast results. It's all about ROI. They're very direct and mission-focused, right? So it's just, as you said, I want the 3 steps, action-orientated. I want to go implement this type of stuff, right? So that's that eagle. They want to win at all costs, right? They're not, their people skills may be a little, they might be, people might think they're abrupt or like rude, whatever, but they're just focused on a mission, right? It's not that they care. It's just like the mission is more important than your feelings right now. I'm sure we all know a few of those people, right?
Yeah.
So I'll come back to how you'd communicate to them in a minute. I'll tell you all 4. So we've got Liberty the eagle, then you got Vegas the peacock, and I call them Vegas because it's just like Vegas. This person is glitz and glamour. They are shows. They tell you stories. They'll interrupt you to tell you stories about a story, right? And the thing is they love status. They love power. They're wearing all the bling. They're going to tell you how they've got the latest Gucci that they bought at like wherever on the way with their black Amex, and like, so it's all status to them, right? They want to know who's doing what and how am I better than that person. Does that, you know a few people like that?
Totally. Yep.
Yeah. So they say a lot of the world of internet marketing is made up of these people. So it's quite interesting, right? So
that's true.
The next one is we have Tank the pigeon or dove, depending how you want to relate. But at the end of the day, think of a pigeon, like a pigeon in a park, right? They're a pack animal. They're very flighty. They want to be everybody's friend, right? So the thing is when you're communicating to that person, you have to communicate what others are doing, how they're doing it. And you have to make sure you're not scaring them because they're anxious. They hate any type of conflict. They hate anything that could cause conflict. This is also the type of person that you can never take to the Cheesecake Factory. The Cheesecake Factory has like 500 items on its menu, right? They don't like making decisions. Making a decision gives them anxiety. So that sales script that a lot of people get taught of, like at the start when they set the agenda and they go, well, at the end of this call, we're going to make a decision. If you're talking to a pigeon, you've literally given that person anxiety.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Because
absolutely,
you know what that person's like when they're ordering lunch, right? The waiter comes up to the table and goes, can I take your order? And like, oh, come back to me. Like they watch what everybody orders around the table. They're looking at who's eating what. Like at the other tables, they're smelling the food as it comes by. And the waiter comes back and they still haven't decided. All right. You know those type of people?
Absolutely.
Right. And then the last one, and I call them Tank, right? Remember this, the name gives you a lot of detail. Tank, because they're like a tanker in the ocean. Like if you think of the Titanic, right? It's a big ship. It takes a long time for that thing to turn around, a long time for a change to happen. So if you're actually asking them to do quick things, you're actually causing them intrinsic problems. And then the last one we have is the thinker, which I call the owl. And the owl is the person who's very analytical. They want the blueprints. They want the white papers. They would rather be right than rich all day long. They've got a lot of training and education. And they will they literally, when they say they need to think about it, they literally need to think about it. So the question you need to ask that person is, so Brendan, what is the logic you use to make a decision like this? What is your decision-making process?
Yeah. You need to ask them so they can tell you exactly how they make those decisions.
Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, I like those 4. I could see
Yeah,
a bit of myself in a couple of those, but I can predominantly see myself for sure as the task oriented eagle. Absolutely, where some people from the outside look at that and they're like, "Oh, he's just doing, doing, doing," to the point even like to the detriment of sometimes like even ignoring some people around me, or which that's something that I have to consciously focus on, making sure that I'm not doing that. When it comes to so now we understand, let's say we understand the prospect's personality type. How much of it does our personality type matter at all in this? Like, do we adjust
100%.
ours? Do we adapt to theirs? Like, what does that look like?
100%. So we need to understand who we are. And by understanding who we are, I need to understand how do I alter my personality to connect to you? Because so if I'm communicating in my style, I'm talking eagle, right? And I have to be aware of that. If I'm talking to you, for example, I'm like, well, hold on, I have to slow down a little bit. Yes, you're task orientated, but I can see you're status orientated as well. So, like a peacock, they kind of fit would be my guess,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the thing is I have to slow down a little bit. I have to include the status. I have to include that type of stuff because if I'm just focusing task orientated, I've missed you. And the thing is most salespeople or most communicators communicate in their style, or they're trying to model somebody else. They're trying to be the guru they're following. They're trying to be Tony Robbins, which is not them.
Yeah.
So the thing is they're mirroring without authenticity.
Mm.
We can actually track authenticity in your communication.
How do you track
And
that?
so linguistically, there's word patterns that actually tell us. So we actually can take like this call recording, right? We can
Yeah.
analyze it, and within 10 minutes, as it tells us, did I have influence over Brandon? Did Brandon have influence over me?
Wow.
When Ben was talking, was he speaking authentically? And this is important when you're having a sales conversation, right? Because like if I go and I'm talking about price and my authenticity drops,
Mm.
I internally may have issues or doubts or concerns with the price or the package or whatever from my own money stuff. So now I'm subconsciously communicating my doubts to you. And
Mm.
like, man, I'm getting a lot of money objections. Oh, people don't want to pay, or they want a discount, or they want a coupon, or well, what are you saying which is actually causing that?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Even the way that you're saying what you're saying.
100%, yes. It's all how you're communicating it, either unconsciously or consciously, and a lot of us aren't even aware of it. As I even said, like leaving people in that happy state. These are all the things that our software does, and it gives you that feedback loop of how am I communicating? What state is this person in? What is their personality type? And it gives you that little prompt to go. Like we give people this communication cheat sheet on
Mm.
how do I need to alter me to be able to have an effective conversation with you. So it goes, here's your style, here's Brandon's style, here's how you need to connect at Brandon's level.
Wow.
That in itself is like a game changer because it's like it might say, hey, if you're an eagle talking to a dove, for example, okay, the dove is a more people person, you've got to slow down. Otherwise, the dove's going to think you're too pushy and you're not listening and appreciating their feelings. I'm like, I don't care about your feelings. I just want you to do the damn task, right? That's the thing. It's like, slow down, ask them how their weekend was. How was lunch?
Yep.
Does that make sense?
It absolutely does. And okay, so now we've got the personalities, we've got the whole adding value, and we've got the taking away from the pushy to simply giving, giving, giving in the outreach, which then turns into the inbound. So we've got a lot of great stuff here. A lot of people are focused on body language, and it's not that they're focused on it, because a lot of people don't even realize the importance of body language, but people are fascinated by the idea that the way that we use our bodies can be conveying a message in itself. Are there specific things to be looking for? Like, because obviously I'm sure there's hundreds of little micro expressions we could analyze. Are there some big rocks per se
Yeah.
that we can look for when it comes to body language that even the untrained eye can begin to pick up on and improve with?
Yeah. So I believe that, like, yes, there's 120 things you can learn with body language, right? And it takes you years to master this. I was lucky enough to get trained by the guy who trained CIA black site interrogators. So this is the stuff that the CIA use. And after doing all of that, I found like there's 3 core behaviors that you can use in every single conversation with absolutely anybody. right? And those three behaviors become more effective and powerful for communication. One of them is reassurance. Like if you're in a conversation with somebody, and particularly on Zoom, like we could be talking and we're talking about something, and I need to be aware of if this behavior happens because, behavior is all about context. Even personality is context driven. And this is where a lot of people get this wrong. They think LinkedIn says it's always the same. Like crossing my shoulders means I'm uncomfortable or I'm lying or whatever it is, right? When that's not the case. I literally could be cold. I could be comfortable. Is that my baseline? Is that how I'm sitting all the time? Context. It's like a video. You're capturing things in motion and you have to understand what's around it. So the thing is I'll show you this one. So reassurance is literally what they call object insertion. So it's something like you see someone chewing a pen, right? Or they cross something over their lips towards their teeth, right? And you'll see that like people are chewing their pen, or you might be at Starbucks and what are they doing? They're chewing on the
Little
stir
drink
sticks.
stopper.
Yeah. Or they might be having a drink and they're chewing on the edge of the cup, right?
Yeah.
So it's important to go, it's like, hey, Brandon, so the package is $10,000. Right. Right. So they start chewing on the pen. Ladies might start chewing on their hair. Right. And so if you see that, you can go, well, hold on. That's a reassurance indicator. You have to go, who was talking? Was I talking? Or was Brandon talking? Right. So, and what was being said? What's the context? So you find it, you kind of file that away and you come back and go, so Brandon, what do you think about that price point? How does that compare to things you're looking at? Oh, well, I got a quote from somebody else and or I'm just trying to work out how to pay for it or how that would expense. Is that a one-time payment? And the thing is a lot of people will miss it and that it's like a festering objection that gets dealt with later. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because then, obviously something's off in that exchange between the two people. And if you're not catching onto that, you'll move on to the next thing. And then at the very end, the person's overwhelmed and they're going to say, well, this is a lot to take in and think about. And maybe they're an owl and they actually need to think about it, but maybe they're not. And maybe they're just not reassured. But because you didn't catch on to that and stop and ask the question, now what they tell you is going to be something completely different. Not even because they don't want to tell you the real objection, but because so much was said between the real objection and where you are now that it's like the person's just completely overwhelmed.
And that's why we find that a lot of people who have the wrong sales model don't know how to ask the right questions. They've focused on a sales method, and the problem is methods change and evolve. Models grow. So the thing is there's a big difference between having a sales model, like a sales process, rather than a method or this one tactic. Because if everyone starts to be aware of this one tactic, it's no longer as effective. So all these people out there who teach these methods and all this type of stuff, they might be teaching something that worked in the 60s.
Yeah.
But they aren't telling you that. So, but yeah, and I'll give you another one.
Yeah.
All right. So, there's another one. Another one is for a subconscious objection, right?
Okay.
Or they call it withheld opinion. So when you're talking, particularly on Zoom, I'd highly, highly recommend if you're doing video calls and things like that, always have your video on because it shows trust and rapport in you, and you'll be amazed how much people get from your own body language and your communication unconsciously through your body language. So always have your camera on. I talk to so many salespeople on a daily basis, and they'll jump on Zoom or something like that, and they won't turn the camera on. They'll put a pretty background picture up. I'm like, turn your stinking camera on because you'll be amazed at how you can communicate more effectively. And people just, even if your lead doesn't have their camera on, doesn't mean you should miss that opportunity. But that's just me ranting. So I'll stop ranting. You're like, Ben, shut up, right? So the thing is what's this body language thing that talks about doubt? This one is, it's literally a lip compression. So if we're talking about something and the context is like, how was your weekend? Oh, it was okay, Mike. The rolling of my lips is you saying no, right?
Wow.
It's you holding back. It's the first thing, and it comes from babies being breastfed and them being full. How do they tell mom I'm full? I don't want any more milk. You close your lips. It's the first thing you do it. Wow. So if you're sitting there and you're talking to them, right? And you see them like do this thing when you're talking about someone, they're fighting themselves back from actually communicating, trying to say something.
Yeah. And what would you ask that kind of person when after you say what you wanted to say, what kind of question would you then move to if you saw that kind of resistance?
Well, don't make the mistake of going, "Oh, Brandon, I see you just rolled your lips. What are you?" No, like,
Yeah,
do not do that. That is like,
that's
you get
strange.
so. It is what I'm saying match the research that you've found or the experiences you've had, or have you had another experience?
Okay. And
Right?
then get their
Because
thoughts on it.
yeah, because one of the things you always want to understand is you're always what we call probing and clarifying. You may understand what something means to you, but your whole goal is to understand what it means to them.
Mm,
What does success mean to them? What does losing those 10 pounds mean to them? What is it going to make possible for them? No, yes, you've heard your customers say it every time. You know what it is, but what does it mean to them? And until you understand that, how on earth are you going to close them?
wow. We covered a lot in this time, man. I mean, we covered a sales process, personality styles, body language. I mean, this is something where people are going to take, depending on what they do, whether it's on Zoom or in person or all the above, like this is some awesome stuff. So your book, I'm assuming, touches many different aspects of these different things and goes deeper into each of them, which again, everyone, the name of Ben's book is People Ignorant: Unlocking Success, Confidence, and Influence. And I guess what was your inspiration with writing this book, Ben? What are you hoping to achieve when people read this book?
Yeah, well, I was extremely shy when I started, and I had a lot of I didn't realize beliefs holding back my success. And it's like, so how did I reset my own belief patterns? How did I identify what they were? How did I become more confident in myself and believe in myself? And it was after finding out those techniques, I'm like, well, I wish I could shortcut this for somebody else so they don't have to spend 20 years and lose millions of dollars and in making this reality happen. So that's where I wanted to go through. And it's really me just documenting that process for myself. Because if I can help you fast track your experience, if I can help you fast track your understanding of personality so you communicate with your loved ones more effectively, then that's huge.
It's invaluable. It's life changing. Yeah, because it's sales. But I mean, if you say something to your spouse and they roll their lip, it's like, okay, something that I said was not received well. And then you can ask that question to your spouse or a friend or a loved one or anybody. I mean, these principles relate to your life just as much as they do your business. And guys, with Ben's book, I was talking to Ben before the show and I was like, so where's the best place people can go to find the book? And obviously you can go buy a copy on Amazon. You can go to Ben's website. You'll find it there too. But Ben was like, well, what we've actually done is if your show, the people who watch this podcast or listen, if you email help@behaviorsales.com, Ben will literally send you over a PDF copy of this book so that you can start diving in immediately. And I thought that was extremely generous. So again, if you want to grab your copy of People Ignorant: Unlocking Success, Confidence, and Influence, email help@behaviorsales.com, mention the Be Better broadcast, mention my name, mention that you saw him, whatever it is, and he'll send over a copy of that book right away. I thank you for that, Ben. That's very generous.
Hey, that saves them $25, right? And they can invest that in lunch instead.
I love it. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. This has been very insightful. I'm taking a lot away from this as well. So, Ben, thank you for your time. And it was a pleasure meeting you on the broadcast, my friend.
My pleasure.
Whether it was the process part, the personalities, the idea of adding value in the outbound phase and not just going for the kill and making the pitch, but instead adding so much value that people are actually asking you how they can be a part of what it is you're doing. We covered a lot in this conversation. Rewind it to what part makes the most sense for you. If you took away even one piece of value from this conversation with Ben Bressington, then please share this show with one person who can use it the most. That's all we ask. We've only grown because of you, because you're the greatest part of our team. Again, you can grab a copy of People Ignorant, Ben's book, at help@behaviorsales.com. Mention you saw the broadcast, and Ben and his team will send over a copy directly to you. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And until we talk again next time, continue to be better.